What is up, Fence fam? Joe Everest, the fence expert. I love meeting you guys in person, and the thing I love the most is hearing about how you guys got into fencing, the struggles, the trials and tribulations, and how you guys overcame them. Basically, your guys' fence story. But rather than just hoard those stories and keep them to myself, I thought what better way to document them and share them with the world than to record those fence stories, preserve them for generations to come, and share them with you guys, the fence fam. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Guys joining us today, Matt Warner, Empire Netting and Fins, MySalesman, amongst others endeavors. Matt, would you share with us your fence story?
I will. I love to talk about where we came from. I do self-proclaim myself as a serial entrepreneur. That's my thing. I love figuring out business, and I love figuring out what makes people tick and understanding the why. It's a big deal for me. But my fence story really started probably. It actually started years before I ever got into the fence industry when I failed miserably, and it's a hard thing for me to talk about, and I always get a little choked up right here because when you fail miserably and it's an embarrassment to the point where you file bankruptcy and your family name, and I'm in a small community, it really can beat you up.
Sure.
So that's really where it started, because at that point in time I'd kind of thrown the towel in, and I said, all right, I need to go work. I need to go figure out life. I need to figure out what we're doing. And there's all kinds of excuses I have for why we fail. But now that I've matured nicely at the ripe age of 50 years old, I've decided that at the end of the day, it's my fault. And I owned up to it. That helped me also to just say, you know what, I screwed up.
Sure.
It is what it is. But I got out of the farming, and I had a little trucking company, and then I went to work in the workforce. I started moving dirt. I worked for a great company called Landscapes Unlimited. They built golf courses and sports fields.
Oh, wow.
So I had a great opportunity there to learn under some great people, and they understand what culture is. They really teach culture, and they had lots of meetings about teamwork and working together in this. So I worked for them for quite a while, but I had to travel all over the case. But I did my first fence and netting job on a baseball field at Landscapes Unlimited.
Okay.
My netting guy never showed up. All the material was there, the poles were there, the net was there, everything was there. So I called my boss and I said, hey, do you mind if I put this thing up? And he said, no, we're under a contract with them, we need to do it. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I get a little impatient sometimes.
No.
Yeah, I know, it's hard to believe. So I just did it.
Sure.
I put it up, which worked out great because he never did show up. But my boss came, which is a good friend of mine, and he said, hey, you did this net? I'm like, yeah, what do you think? He's like, it looks beautiful. You know, this is something you should do. So I had it in the back of my mind, and I finished up the fence, and I finished up some other stuff. I figured out, well, this isn't real hard, but you know, you got to get after it. So that was my first time I'd done anything with fencing and netting. Now, I quit. I left that job. I got a job closer to home, so I could be home with my kids.
Sure.
I had littles, and littles is tough when you're traveling. My daughter didn't even know who I was. When I was gone for 3 weeks, one time I came home and she wouldn't even come to me, and I just said that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, I've always said God, family, work. Keep it that way. And as a matter of fact, on my Twitter account, that's what I have, because I want to remind myself every day that that's the priority. But also, when I came back to work, I got into construction. I learned a lot. I was in general construction, and I built some buildings, I built some hotels, and I got promoted very rapidly and moved up through the ranks and had a good time there. One day, though, a friend of mine that owned a fence company in Omaha came to me, and he said, hey, would you like to sell fence? I said, man, I can't sell. I've never sold a thing in my life. I'm a farm kid, done some construction. I'm a pretty good superintendent. I think I'm good. And he, by golly, I slept on it for a few days and prayed about it. Next thing you know, I was selling fence. And he basically was baptism by fire, man. He just said, here's how you figure out pricing. Here's how you figure out vinyl. Here's what we do. Here's the book. Go sell. And I was so nervous. It was funny. I sold my very first job, and the lady wrote me a check on the spot. And when I got done, I told her, I said, this is my first time I've ever sold anything. And she's like, well, you did a great job. We're going to take the fence. And so I get this check, and then I'm like, well, this is easy, right? Anybody can sell this.
Sure.
So I take it back to my boss up in Omaha, and I was in Lincoln. I sold it in Lincoln. I took it up to Omaha and handed it out, and he's like, you got a check? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get a check every time. Yeah, it doesn't work like that every time. I totally got lucky on my first
Sure,
She was a very sweet lady, and matter of fact, every time I drive by, I'm like, it's my first fence I ever sold right there. So that's really how I got into the fence industry. Now, he had some things go a little bit awry with his fence company, and things didn't quite work out. And I really was starting to feel like, you know what, I enjoy this selling thing. I enjoy talking to people. I really want to do another netting job, but I'd like to tie it in with fence. I want to make like a netting. And so I thought about it. Well, in 2009, I incorporated and started just slowly doing some weekend warrior stuff. Meanwhile, working for a different contractor, I subsidized my income by having a full-time job, plus worked on the weekends and just had it. Scott Kleinbeck and Jamie, a good friend of mine, Kevin Schmidt, all of them were very instrumental in helping me kind of fill the crew. We were the crew. We did what we could. We'd go do a netting job wherever it was on the weekend and then drive home. But I always tell people August 24th of 2014 is when I burned the boat. I made the commitment, and I erased the backup plan. I just said, the burn the boat story, when he said, men, we're going to go here. And they had actually failed several times because they always retreated. So this time the king said, don't come back until you take over and you get the gold. So the captain of all the fleet literally started them on fire and said, this is either do or die.
There is no retreat.
Right. We are going to either win or die. So I kind of did that sort of. Not that extreme because I already kind of had a base, and I was able to, I had a really good paying job, so I was able to save some money and get through. But that's really where it got started. I failed miserably on the fact of understanding what it took to run a company. My arrogance got in the way of, I can do this better than him. But now when I look back, if I would have put my arrogance aside, I would have probably propelled a little bit quicker even, because it took me about 3 years before I started implementing my Monday morning meetings. I started implementing leadership talks. I started really reading Simon Sinek's book, The Why, and then there's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. I read that, and that really changed my perspective, and that's what propelled us. And now we have some other companies. I think there's 8 all in all, if you count our real estate divisions. We have 2 real estate arms that we put the buildings in. And, but I really think that the greatness has come from the people. When I started empowering our people and really making them feel like they were valued more, and I got them to understand I don't want coin-operated people. That's really when we took off. I mean, it was hammer down. Let's go. So that's it in a nutshell.
So Matt, how did you transition? So you said you met with the team and you kind of decided to transition away from coin-operated, right?
Yeah.
And well, let's talk about coin-operated. What does that mean to Matt or to Empire?
Well, so if Simon Sinek says it best, you need to understand why you're doing what you are. And if you think it's for a paycheck, you're wrong. That's the result of why you're doing it. You really need to understand why you want to be around there. I love what we do because I get to surround myself with a whole bunch. I got 61 people now.
Wow.
I like them.
Yeah.
They're good people. And I meet with them every Monday. And I go around, and I fist bump each one of them Monday mornings. How you doing? How was your weekend? But But I want them to know that I care about them, and I want them to know that this company isn't really about building fence. It's about building people and taking care of people, and it's a way for us to do it. It's the building fence is the means of what we do to be able to give people what they need in life to survive. But hopefully along the way we help them grow, because I really believe that there's enough stresses and everything else with children and marriage and finances and everything else, that if they can be in a place that they enjoy and they know they're at, then they're going to be a better father, better son, better grandparent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But getting to understand the why is a deep thing, and I don't want to be able to put a quarter in somebody and have them dance. I don't want that. I want people that are engaged in what we're doing and who we are. And I'm really, we've gotten to know each other pretty well, but I'm really, really passionate about making sure. And you know what? I screw up. And I screw up, and I tell the guys when I screwed up. A couple weeks ago, I fully admitted to everybody, listen, I dropped the ball. I apologize for what I did. I screwed up. I did not give you the right amount of time on a Monday morning meeting, and that will never happen again. But I think that's what I want them to know, is that, hey, I'm human.
Sure.
I'm going to make a mistake once in a while.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah.
Bound to happen. So, Matt, going back to that first netting job, what about that? Because you'd never installed netting before.
Right.
What was the thing that you looked at this thing and you knew you could do it? You know what I mean? What was it about that you just said, yeah, I could do that?
You know, it had nothing to do with the net or the ability to do it. It had everything to do that I didn't want to let the people that were counting on me to get this job done. I didn't want to let them down. And I actually looked at that net as, well, I'll just figure it out. You know, I don't know if it's hard or easy. I don't really know. But I need these 4 nets put up. There were 4 backstops. Okay. So I was building a quad. I was like, I need these things built because my deadline's coming. So I didn't want to disappoint the people that were in charge of me. I wanted to make sure. I am also extremely competitive. It's a curse.
We've seen that.
Holy cow! Sometimes it's probably not healthy. I love to win.
Sure.
I understand that there's more to life than just winning.
Sure.
But I guess I've just decided that my goal is to always win.
Yeah.
And that's just how I roll. I want to win.
And I don't think that's bad. You know, I don't think having that competitive drive is necessarily a negative thing. I think it's probably necessary. You know, if we're talking about, you know, what it takes to run a successful business, I think you have to have that drive.
Yeah.
That drive to succeed and drive to win.
I would agree. I lost the bags today, and it irritated me.
Sure.
And even Jamie, he walked up to me and goes, "You're a little bit mad, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a lot mad. I don't like to lose." I mean, he was really a good player, so it was fun.
Sure.
I'd love to play him again. I was like, all right, I wanted to say, all right, we're going to play until
rematch.
I win. Yeah. But I think that's also a little bit of I think some of us have been programmed or taught or whatever. You know, I mean, I hate to say it. Even when I coached my kids in soccer, they didn't keep the score, and I just didn't understand that. And my kids would always be like, "Dad, we won 5-1." I'm like, okay, we'll talk about it on the way home.
All right,
But a little bit of that is in business too. That if you wake up every day and you think, "Oh, we're going to lose thousands of dollars today. We're going to lose this or this," I think when you speak something, it's going to come true.
Sure.
And I want to say we're going to win.
Yeah.
And we're going to wake up and we're going to win. And it's a grind. I also think that in business, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here a little bit for you. I think in business, your attitude as the leader reflects on everything.
Yep.
If you know, I do this holler thing, this woo, I do it, and I'm amazed at how many people will look and they'll be like, "What is that?" And they'll be like, "All right, that guy's got some energy." But I'll tell you what, it takes effort to keep that energy up all the time and to be hooting and hollering and to be high-fiving. You got to be mentally strong. You got to be practicing. You got to be listening to podcasts, listen to other people and their art, listen to what they are. Take note. Read your Bible. Read Jim Collins' the books and on audio tapes and stuff. But I think it's a practice. You got to be willing, and you got to be constantly pushing. And what you speak, well, more likely, if you say, "Hey, I'm probably going to go broke," you're probably going to go broke.
Yeah, and there's something to that about setting a goal and saying it over and over until it becomes true.
Yeah.
Right. That you know what you need to do. You know what the goal is. You know where the destination is.
Yeah.
Right. Matt, let's talk about. So I think scoreboards are important. This is something I've been thinking about lately. Is you said it bugged you when the kids didn't keep score. I think it bugs our team members when they don't know what the score is.
Oh, well said.
Right.
It really is. A measuring mark.
Yeah. Right.
For success.
And it's not winning, losing.
Right.
Right. It is. Here's the goal, and here's where you are.
Yep.
And here's the rules of the game. Like I'll admit, as a business owner, I've been pretty horrible at explaining what the rules of the game are.
Right.
I bring someone onto the team and I say, well, let's get to playing.
Yeah.
And then they break a rule and I say, what are you doing? That's not the game we're playing. But I didn't take time to explain the game, to explain the rules and the scoreboard, how we keep track.
I think that's a weakness for all of us. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'll fully admit, for a long time, I probably wasn't paying my people enough money. I didn't think we could afford to do it.
Sure.
But I sat everybody down. I went through every single employee or team member.
Sure.
Sean King will get mad at me if I say that. No, it's kidding. But I sat them all down and I told them a story about time and what time means to me and how important it is and how I value their time. And we gave everybody $2, $3, $4 raises across the board. We just were across the entire company. And at that time, a year and a half ago, we had probably 50 employees. So that was a substantial increase.
Yeah.
Not only just increase in pay, but work comp.
Right.
All the other compensations, employment taxes,
Sure.
The 401k, they're going to be putting a little bit more away now.
Yep.
I mean, it all adds up, and
Sure.
it was an investment. But I sat them all down, and I basically told them that I see time in two categories: sacrifice time and intentional time. And I think you've heard me talk about this. And
yes.
I'm proud to say I think I've spent enough time thinking about this that it really kind of goes in those two categories. Now, we sacrifice time for each other and working and doing this stuff. But if we're intentional while we're doing that, your time will be more meaningful. And let's get done and let's get back. So I'm going to try to pay you a little bit more.
Sure.
Because I want you to hurry up and get done so you can spend more time with your family and not have to worry about taking the hit. So that whole thing is hard to do as a business owner.
Well, because there's not one answer.
Right.
Right. There's no one set of rules or one game plan. It's always a little bit. The rules are always changing, and the game's always changing to some extent. You had mentioned spending time with family. What does work family or work life relationship or the time management of spending at work versus spending with your family, what does that look like?
Now, this is Matt's opinion.
Of course.
Okay, so I think that too many people say, I'm not going to put in those kind of hours. I own my own business, so I can be home at this time and this time. And I think that you're setting yourself up for failure in the long run if you have the attitude of, no, this is my time. Because when you're a business owner, your time is everybody's time.
True.
And it really is. And you get pulled in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Now, I also think that it's important, this is one of Matt's thoughts again.
Yeah.
I think it's important for your kids to know that you're going to miss some of their basketball games and you're going to miss a t-ball game and you're going to miss, you should make the ones that are meaningful. And when your daughter comes and says, Dad, I really want you there tonight, you should make it happen.
Yeah.
But I also think it's okay for your kids to have a bump on the road and not have you there all the time, because that's how they learn. That's how they learn how to manage time without you always in their presence. And I hate missing my kids' stuff, but they also know that I have a very large responsibility of 60 some other families to take care of, and we got to make sure that they're all eaten and doing. So now I will tell you, we've hit a point where I do get to have some more home time now. But when we were grinding it and we were going, I mean, it would be, when I had 2 jobs, basically, I mean, we would leave on a Friday afternoon and we would drive all night long and we would work all day Saturday. We would work late till Saturday night, work all day Sunday. We would stop, maybe go to church, go back to work, and then drive home and go back to work on Monday. And I'd miss events. And I told my kids, I said, when you want something really bad, you got to work out. You got to get stronger. You got to build it. And I want something really bad. I want it for all of us. I want to be able to change things. Plus, if I do this really right, I told my son one time, I said, if I do this right, you won't have to work as hard as I had to work to get it, because it's ground up. You're going to have to work really hard to keep it going, but hopefully we got that flywheel effect going, and we can spin off of that a little bit. Another good book, by the way, Flywheel. But I will tell you, I've learned in the last couple of years that getting a cup of coffee and taking 15, 20 minutes and sitting at the end of the bed while Melanie's getting ready is pretty valuable. And pretty special. And I'm an early, I get up, I can't sleep anymore, so I get up at 4 in the morning and I just go to work. But now I've learned that if I can go home and spend 15 or 20 minutes and get her a cup of coffee, or she gets me a cup of coffee, we do those nice things. You got to find your love language. You ever read that book? There's another one. Because a marriage is just like owning a business. You got to work at it. You got to be constantly trying to groom it. And today, I think I mentioned to you too that I really think that culture in your family setting is just, if not more important than in your work setting.
Absolutely.
So you've got to build that culture of fun, loving, discipline. It's okay for mom and dad to get in a fight once in a while, and it's okay for the kids to see them fight once in a while, because when you love you love each other, you do fight.
Well, yeah, absolutely. On that note, I would agree with you that I think it's okay for them to see that, because I think they need to know so this is a whole topic, but I think they need to know what forgiveness looks like.
Absolutely.
So it's actually what the message I heard on Sunday was about forgiveness. So that's not a unique thought, but no, I think you're right. I think that's important. On the subject of time management, and you serial entrepreneur, 8 businesses. How does that time management work?
It can be a grind. I'm better at it than I was. I'm better at also letting my team have the reins and fail once in a while. I'm better at thinking through a process and laying out some groundwork. As you go through, you constantly get better at it. And this last business that we just started, we started it a year ago, January, and I spent 7 months, I think 6 or 7 months, with the guy that was going to run it for me, grooming him. Like, I invested, no revenue coming in. So, but we were able to afford that because Empire was doing good, and so I just said, this is going to be an investment. And I talked, him and I talked every day. We talk almost every day now at 6 a.m. We're both early birds, so he comes in my office. We spend 15, 20 minutes talking. But time management is really difficult to understand, because you're always scared. You're always scared. You're always scared of something. But I really think that once you get over that fear and you learn that it's okay to empower somebody, and I've got to let that go, I believe it gets easier to manage that fear. But I think a little bit of fear is always good in everybody. But but like we have a rule at our work. If a meeting goes over an hour, anybody there is free to leave, because we should have got it done. We should have done a better job. We also, when we get done with a meeting, we try to wrap it up in about 50 minutes. We always say, okay, what are the takeaways? Boom, 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 boom. Does everybody got that? Now, when they walk away from that, they don't spend an hour thinking, oh my gosh, what did we just talk about? So those little things that can keep you more focused, I believe, come with time and practice at doing this. By all means, I'm not saying I'm like a miracle startup business guy. I just like it.
Sure.
A lot.
And I think that bears talking about that. I think everything is at all times a work in progress.
Yeah.
Right. I think too often we look at someone and say, they've got it figured out. Mm-hmm. When I think if we get in their head, they're trying to figure it out. Yeah. They're trying to figure it out like everyone else.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think everyone's in that kind of that constant state of figure the next thing out.
Yep.
Matt, my last question for you. How would you attribute the difference between luck and hard work in your success?
Wow. So I have a really good friend of mine out in California. He's 84 years old, and he's been a mentor to me. He has a very successful business. And I talk to him probably, every other week, almost every week, if not every other week for sure. And him and I have grown a really good relationship, which is really odd. It's like we're almost like brothers, even though he's 32 years older than me. But he always says, I used to always say, I just got really lucky. And he says, Matt, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And the more I think about that, grind. I always tell people, I told a young man today, I said, you're in for a grind. You're in for a 4 or 5 year grind, and you got to figure out if you're going to commit to that. But the harder you grind it, the luckier you're probably going to get. Things just come, and we've been really fortunate. I was reflecting with Jamie in 2013. We went to our first ever AFA with our MySalesman product. We knew 0 people.
Yeah,
we were scared to death. We had a product that when software wasn't even really cool in the fence industry. There was no podcasts.
Yeah,
there was no social media.
Right.
There was no, and this isn't that long ago, right?
Sure.
2013.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in a back corner booth, and people would come up, and people at that time were like, "That'll never work. You got to go to every lead." And I kept thinking to myself, "Man, do you really?" And then they started kind of getting in my head. I'm like, "Well, man, this thing really isn't going to work. There's no way this thing's going to work." And I'd be like, "No, it's going to work. It's going to work." So with that. I think we got really lucky that we were a little bit ahead of the curve.
Sure.
Right? We were a software trying to think differently a long time ago. But along with that, man, we worked our tails off. Jamie and I went to our first 150 customers, we went to every one of their offices.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine going to 150 different fence offices? Now, there's times we would line it up and try to hit 6 or 7.
Sure.
And then we signed up a big company out east, Seegers Fence, and we hit all 16 of their branches. So that was nice. But can you imagine going to you fly somewhere and then you drive halfway across the United States and then fly back home to hit every one? But we thought, let's go old school on this. Let's don't use as much technology because we're dealing with old school people.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't mean that in offense. I don't mean to offend the fence industry, but we tend to get set in our ways. So we said, you know what? Let's go knock on the doors because they're going to respect that. Let's be different. And I'm telling you, wouldn't believe how many people say it's a waste of money. You're going to go see every single. I'm like, at least until we get a base and a following. Now it's so much nicer now because you and Mark Olson and Sean and everybody's just really good to us. Where they really talk highly about our product and our company. So it's been good. But I would like to think that we worked really, really hard, and we got lucky.
Sure.
On a few things. Few things went right for us, and. But we were grinding it. MySalesman was an idea that I almost shut it down about halfway through because I was like, I'm never going to get anything out of this.
Wow.
So it was scary.
So there's a saying that goes something to the effect of luck finds itself at the intersection of hard work and perseverance.
Yes.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I love it. I will tell you, I respect the fence industry so much because it is hardworking people. Yeah. And I come in from a farm background, if I told you, hey Joe, I got a farm kid that you can hire, you'd probably say, bring him down, Matt.
Done.
Well, Matt, Joe, do you want to interview him? No, bring him down, Matt. But do you want to talk to him first? No, just tell him to come down. I'll hire him right now because it's the mentality of knowing. But I will tell you, people that have been doing fence for a lot of years, they're hardworking people.
Yeah.
And that's kudos to our industry. I love our industry. I love where we're at. And I'm sick and tired of people thinking we're just fence guys.
Yeah,
you know
right,
what?
right.
We are site security, protecting families, protecting loved ones, protecting. We're adding value to their houses. We're an investment, and we need to look at ourselves that way.
As trade professionals.
Yes.
Absolutely. Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. I really do.
Thanks for asking me, Joe. You do a great job.
Guys, until next time, I'm Joe, Matt, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.